Hello, it's Michelle DeLeon for Two Peas in a Bucket with another Seeing Double video. This month, I wanted to focus on florals and went for a more bold statement with florals on my layout and a little bit more subtle with the card. So I started by pulling out some of my floral pattern paper. There's always different lines that have different kinds of florals. This one here is a chalkboard floral from My Mind's Eye from the new cut and paste line. This one is from Crate Paper. I have a few from the Dear Lizzy 5th and Frolic line, and that navy one in the middle is definitely my favorite. You'll see it in quite a few of my projects. And there's also this one from 5th and Frolic. There's definitely many more papers, but I just pulled from my stash. So here's some embellishments that I pulled as well. These are from 5th and Frolic, Dear Lizzy. There's some die cuts. And I also have these stickers from 5th and Frolic as well that have a few flowers. And I also have another sticker book. This is from Amy Tangerine, Yes Please. And some of these wood veneer cards from American Crafts and Amy Tangerine. I also have these stickers again from Amy Tangerine, Yes Please. And there's some puffy stickers and some dimensional stickers. I didn't use all of the products, but they're just what I pulled out for inspiration. So the background paper that I chose is this chalkboard print from My Mind's Eye from the Cut and Paste Flare collection, and this is the photo that I'll be using today. I just made a grid in Picasa and put a whole bunch of little photos that weren't really a full layout worthy on their own, but were just little bits and pieces over the summer. I usually don't do darker backgrounds, but I thought that the floral prints and floral die cuts would really pop out against it. I wanted to add some glitter splatters to the background, and here I'm just wetting my paintbrush, and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of Mod Podge. I just wanted it to be a more fluid consistency so that I could create the splatter effect. And I'm just doing it on this little plastic baggie because I knew I didn't need a whole lot. They're just a few splatters that I wanted to add. And that looks like the right consistency, so I just gave it a little test on that plastic baggie before I put it onto my background. And I'm just trying to place the splatters in that diagonal line. And that's looking good. So now I'm going to take some gold glitter and just sprinkle it over the glue. I'm just going to apply quite a bit, and I have my scrap piece of paper underneath to collect any leftover. So I just shook off the excess, and since there are still a few places where the glitter wouldn't come off of, I took a clean paintbrush and just tried to move any unwanted glitter. And I just used my heat gun to dry the glue so I could start working. So I'm going to take my grid of photos, and I decided to place it in the center of the page. I used my silhouette to cut out some of these leaves as well as some of the flower die cuts from the Two Peas digital store. So I'm just taking the bigger leaves that I cut out, and when I did cut them out, I made sure that I flipped one of them horizontally so they weren't the exact same, because I'm going to create this kind of semicircle at the bottom here. And I'm just going to take the smaller leaves that I cut out as well and do the same on the top. And now I'm going to take the cut files from the Two Peas digital store, and I just cut out the flowers on two different papers. They're both from the Dear Lizzy Lucky Charm line, and I'm just going to start placing them over the leaves. And I really like these little small ones, so I'm just going to add them to the sides there. And already you can see that the colors are really popping against that chalkboard background. And I wanted the flowers to be a little bit more random, so I'm going to place the bigger one kind of off to the side rather than in the center for that top part. And I like the flower placement, so now I'm going to start adding a few different embellishments and some layers. So these are from the two-piece digital store. They're the August printables, and I just took a label and that tag, and I'm just going to add it to the top. So for layers, I have that Dear Lizzie Lucky Charm navy paper, and I just cut it out a little bit bigger than the photo. And I also have this yellow piece from the 6x6 pad from the Studio Calico Atlantic line. I'm just going to add that in as well for a bit more color. So for journaling, I wanted to add a hidden library pocket. So I took this one from the Basic Gray Capture line, and there's this one that has this nice kind of greenish color and some aqua. So I'm going to use that as a layer and just make sure that I don't glue over the actual library card. And I could have just journaled directly on the background. I think a white gel pen would have worked great, but I was just a little nervous about ruining the background. So now I'm going to take this smile portion of the journaling card from the printables, and I just wanted to add that as a little tab in my layers. And I'm just going to tuck it in behind some of the pattern paper as an extra layer. I'm going to take this other journaling card from the printables. It says Take Note, and I'm going to also tuck that behind for some extra color. So I'm just seeing how I like the placement. And it looked a little long at the top, so I'm just going to trim it off a bit so it'll fit better. So now I'm getting ready to add my title, and I have these Fancy Pants Cream Alpha stickers, and they look great against that chalkboard background. So I'm just placing the letters onto my ruler so that I can move things around and make sure I like where everything is placed. There wasn't an ampersand or a plus sign with these alpha stickers, so I started looking through my other white alphas, and I thought about using that ampersand, and then I remembered that I have these puffy stickers from Skipping 5, and I decided to use that ampersand. And I'm just going to add my title to the bottom middle there. So I'm just making sure that everything is even before I place down the stickers. And usually something is off, so I just tried to make sure that a little part of each letter was curled up so that I could move things around if I want. And now just looking at the page, I decided to fan my layers out a little bit more, just to have them peeking out and have some more color showing. And now I decided to finally adhere everything down. So I'm just going to start with the photo and go through all of the layers. And I just tried to make sure that none of the layers were glued onto the actual library card, just the pocket, since I'll be doing my journaling on the card later. And now I'm going to start adhering down the leaves and flowers, which was a little bit trickier. So I started by taking the leaves, and I wanted to just try to add regular adhesive and try to keep it mostly to the stem of the leaves. I did want some dimension of the leaves sticking up, so I just tried to keep it near the center. And they are quite delicate, so here you can see I did end up ripping off that bottom portion, but I wasn't too concerned since the flowers should be covering it anyways, and I can just add it back on without too much, without it being too obvious. So after I fixed that up, I just continued adhering the leaves and again just mostly sticking to the center to add my adhesive. And I added the adhesive to the flowers, mostly in the center as well. The petals of the flowers were a little delicate, so I didn't want to rip that accidentally while adding the adhesive. And now I'm just adhering the photo and all of the layers and making sure it's centered where I want it to be. And I just changed the placement of that label and tag to face more inwards to the photo. And I wanted to add this little glitter arrow from Freckled Fawn, just as a little accent to that cluster. And now I just wanted to add a little bit more to that journaling card. So I'm just going to use these Jelly Bean alpha beans and spell out summer. I was going to do summer 2013, but it didn't really fit with the alphas, so I'm just going to use my pen to add that in. I also wanted to add that Dear Lizzie roller stamp, so I picked the phrase this and that, and I just used some gray chalk ink. I also added some hand stitching. I just added two simple X's as accents. And then I added my journaling to finish off the page. So here's a detailed shot of the florals and the overall page. I really like how the florals stand out against that chalk background. And now on to the card. I have some of the die cuts from the August files from the Two Piece Digital Store, so I still have some leftover flowers, and I have this cute little coffee cup with a heart cut out, and I wanted to use that as the main image on my card. So I just wanted to back the heart with some red, and I didn't have red cardstock unfortunately, so I just dabbed a bit of this Hero Arts ink dauber in pale tomato, and I'm just cutting it out. I don't need it to be perfect. I just need a really small red piece just to back that heart, and that works just fine. So I'm just going to keep that in place with a little piece of washi tape. And I just have some dark brown cardstock that I'm going to use to back the top part of the cup. So I'm just going to cut out a little piece and again back it with washi tape. And now I wanted to add a pattern paper to that background, and I'm picking this one from Dear Lizzie, Fifth and Frolic, and I'm going to use that really subtle small floral print. And once I have that piece cut out, I'm just going to adhere it down since I know for sure that I want it as the background. And now I'm just taking out a scrap piece of white cardstock, and it's just the same one that I used for the ink dauber for that heart. I wanted to use this Mama Elephant stamp set. It's called Smitten, and I'm going to use the You, Me, We sentiment. So I'm just going to get that out and put it onto my acrylic block. And I'm just using this chalk ink by Prima called Ladybug, and just inking up the stamp. So I'm just going to stamp it near the bottom since I know I need some white space at the top for where I want to place the coffee cup. So I'm going to take out this 2 peas in a bucket wood veneer frame, and I wanted to frame the sentiment and the coffee cup. So I'm just going to make sure it's in place and glue it down before I cut out that white paper. And I'm just checking to make sure that everything fits nicely. And that looks pretty good, so I'm just going to glue down the frame before cutting out the white paper so I can make sure everything is centered. And now that it's adhered, I'm going to cut along the white cardstock to make sure that none of it peeks through the frame. And to add a little bit more dimension, I'm going to use a pop dot to adhere the coffee cup. And I like the kind of double meaning for date. Usually you would mean calendar date, but for this I kind of wanted it to be like a coffee date. So just adding it there. And since I used a really subtle floral print for the background, I don't think that um, the floral is too overwhelming in the cup as well. For some extra detail, I'm going to add those flower die cuts just behind the frame, just to have them peeking out there. And to adhere the flowers down, I'm just going to use my regular adhesive and mostly focus on the areas that'll be covered by the frame. So since it will be covered, I'm not too worried about the glue showing through. And now I'm ready to adhere down that frame, so I'm just going to glue along the back and add it to the center. And that should be good. So here's a look at the finished card with the different floral prints and die cuts. And another look at the card. So my challenge is to incorporate florals into your projects, whether it be bold or subtle. Thanks so much for watching.